Today, we're going to dive into one single, absolutely fascinating story. Now, our goal here isn't to prove or disprove a miracle. Instead, we're going to act like detectives. We're going to break down its components and really explore the anatomy of what some people would call a truly powerful prayer. So let's start with a really core idea from the source of this whole story, Caroline Myss. She says something that just stops you in your tracks. We want prayer to be polite, quiet, nice. But she argues that real prayer, well, it's not polite at all. It's power. And that completely reframes it, doesn't it? It's not just a soothing thought. It's an active, moral force in the world. And that leads us to the big question we're tackling today. Using this one incredible incident as our case study, what are the ingredients? What are the choices and the conditions that have to come together to create a prayer that, at least according to the story, actually works? You know, the whole thing kicks off in maybe the most boring, frustrating place you can imagine. A traffic jam. But it's right here, in this moment of shared annoyance, that one single, totally invisible choice gets made that sets this entire chain of events in motion. Oh, yeah, you know the scene. We've all been there. It's raining, you see the flashing lights up ahead, cars are backed up for miles, and you just feel stuck. For almost everyone there, it's just an inconvenience, right? A reason to be late. But for one person, way up at the front of that line, it's a moment of absolute crisis. So in that exact moment, you've got two roads you can go down. The default path, and let's be honest, it's the one most of us take, is what the source calls emotional leakage. You just let the irritation, the complaints, the why me, you let it all spill out. But then there's another path, to consciously generate something different, to generate compassion and mercy. And right there we get our first receipt, our first piece of evidence, if you will. While basically everyone else in that traffic jam was defaulting to annoyance, one person made a fundamentally different choice. And the story argues this isn't just about being a nice person. It's a sign of a trained spiritual character. Now, this might sound like some kind of superpower, but the account suggests it's not magic at all. It's actually a trainable reflex. And it's built in these tiny, everyday moments. Like when you get an annoying email, can you take just one conscious breath? Can you practice a little self-compassion to shift out of that fret mode? Or even just silently wish one stranger well as you go about your day? These are the little exercises that build the muscle for when it really, really counts. Okay, now let's get into the part everyone wants to argue about, the whole idea that prayer works. To really understand what this story is claiming, we have to get really precise about what that phrase even means, because it's not a simple yes or no. To really get a handle on this, we've got to break it down. Prayer works isn't just one thing. It can mean at least 3 different things. Level 1 is that it changes you, the person praying. Level 2 is that it's actually felt by the person you're praying for. And level 3, the big one, is that it can physically change what happens in the world. Now, what's fascinating is that this story makes a strong claim about the first 2 levels, but it kind of leaves that third one as an open question. Okay, so level 1, this is the baseline, right? This is the part that even a total skeptic can probably get on board with. We know that prayer, or meditation, or focused intention, it has a measurable effect on our own brains and bodies. It can literally shift us out of a state of panic and into coherence, out of fear and into a state of openness. In the middle of a crisis, that shift alone is a huge deal. But this is where the story takes a huge leap, all the way to level 2. The claim here isn't this that the person praying felt better. It's that the compassion was experienced by the person in crisis as a real, tangible contact, like a clear, distinct signal of help that just appeared out of thin air with absolutely no one telling her it was coming. And this detail, this is what gives the whole story its name and makes it so weirdly specific. We're talking about the 5th car back. That's not just a poetic detail. It's a claim that this powerful compassion came from a specific person in a specific place. It's what makes the story so darn compelling. So what are the receipts here? What evidence does the story offer for this incredible claim? Well, receipt number 1 is that outlier we just talked about. In a sea of irritation, one person generated a moral response. Receipt number 2 is about the quality of that signal. It wasn't felt as just some vague, warm, fuzzy feeling. The report is that it was a clean, stable, coherent signal that literally cut through the chaos and panic of that moment. And then there's receipt number 3. And honestly, for anyone trying to pick this apart, this is the big one. The person receiving this help was never told someone was praying for her. She had zero expectation. This is so crucial because it pretty much rules out the simple explanation of a placebo effect. The experience arrived totally unannounced. All right, so the story doesn't stop there. The next chapter takes us into this really profound state of mind, what some people call a near-death experience. This is where the person in the accident describes a massive shift in perspective, as if she were seeing the whole scene from above. And look, it's so easy to get stuck on, did this really happen? But the story kind of nudges us to ask a much more interesting and, frankly, more useful question. What does an experience like this teach us? What does it reveal about what we think is so important in our day-to-day lives? The first thing that's described in the state is what's called a priority collapse. And it's exactly what it sounds like. All the things your ego obsesses over, being in control, your reputation, all those little daily fears, they just instantly become meaningless. They lose all their authority in the face of this much, much bigger perspective. So you see, the real test of an experience like this isn't the flashy cinematic vision of floating above your body. The real proof is in the pudding, right? It's what happens after. Does it create real, lasting, durable changes in how you live your life? Do you become more compassionate, more purposeful? Does your integrity get stronger? That's the real test. And that leads us perfectly into the final piece of the puzzle here, which you could argue is the cleanest, most solid piece of evidence in the whole story. It's all about what happens when gratitude stops being just a feeling and turns into a real-world action. So let's just recap the journey we've been on here, the whole arc of this thing. It starts with a tiny internal moral choice. That choice leads to a moment of contact. That contact sparks a profound insight. And finally, that insight demands a response. It demands action. And that right there, that is the behavioral proof. The story doesn't just end with a nice feeling of relief. It ends when the person who was helped goes to the trouble of actually tracking down the woman from the fifth car just to say, face to face, thank you. The source makes a powerful point here. Gratitude that stays inside your head is incomplete. It has to become an action. So, to wrap this all up, let's just sit with this really provocative idea from Caroline Myss, because it completely flips the script on the whole debate. She says, do not ask prayer to prove itself to you. Prove yourself worthy of prayer. The challenge isn't out there, it's in here. You know, when you boil it all down, this whole story isn't just some weird anecdote to analyze. It's really an invitation, and it leaves every single one of us with a very personal question. The next time you're the fifth car back, the next time you're stuck in traffic or you see someone struggling, will you be one of the crowd leaking irritation, or will you be the one who cares?